It was a crisp autumn afternoon in New York City. Inside the grand St. Patrick's Cathedral, the air was filled with the soft glow of candlelight and the hushed whispers of those seeking solace. Among them stood Father Michael Carter, a humble priest known for his wisdom and kindness. As he finished his evening prayer, the heavy oak doors swung open, and in walked Ryan Lancaster, a young billionaire with a reputation for arrogance. Dressed in an impeccably tailored suit and exuding an air of confidence, he strolled down the aisle, his polished shoes clicking against the marble floor. With a smirk, he approached the priest, his voice laced with mockery. The congregation watched in silence as an unexpected confrontation unfolded, one that would leave everyone in shock. Ryan crossed his arms, his smirk widening as he glanced around the cathedral. "Tell me, Father," he said, his voice dripping with amusement. "You spend your life preaching about humility, yet you stand in this grand building filled with gold and marble. Isn't that a bit hypocritical?" Father Michael met Ryan's gaze with a calm, unwavering expression. "The beauty of this place is not in its wealth, but in what it represents. A sanctuary for those in need, a place where people seek hope." Ryan scoffed. "Hope? That's a fairy tale for the weak. I built my empire from nothing. No prayers, no miracles, just ambition and hard work. And look at me now." He spread his arms as if presenting himself as living proof of success. "Where was God when I struggled? Where was He when my father walked out on us? When my mother worked 3 jobs just to keep food on the table?" For a moment there was silence. The flickering candlelight cast shadows on the cathedral walls, as if the past itself had come alive in Ryan's words. Father Michael sighed, stepping closer. "You carry a heavy burden, Ryan. But let me ask you, now that you have all this wealth, are you truly happy?" Ryan opened his mouth to respond, but no words came. The answer should have been easy. He had everything: money, power, influence. Yet, standing there in the dim light of the cathedral, faced with a question he had never dared to ask himself, he felt something unfamiliar. A hollow space deep within him, one he had spent years ignoring. He clenched his jaw. "Happiness is an illusion," he muttered. "You either win or you lose." Father Michael smiled gently. "Then tell me, Ryan, if you have one, why do you still feel like you're losing?" Ryan's fingers curled into fists. For the first time in years, he felt uncertain, and he hated it. But before he could respond, a sudden noise interrupted the moment. A soft sob from the back of the cathedral. Ryan turned toward the sound, his pulse quickening. What he saw next would change everything. Ryan turned sharply toward the sound. At the back of the cathedral, near a dimly lit row of pews, a woman sat hunched over, her shoulders trembling. Her sobs echoed softly in the vast space, raw and unguarded. Something about the scene unsettled him. He had heard people cry before. Business rivals who lost deals, desperate employees pleading for a second chance. But this was different. It wasn't the sound of someone mourning loss. It was the sound of someone breaking. Father Michael's expression remained serene as he glanced at the woman. "Perhaps she is why you are here tonight, Ryan." Ryan scoffed, but the unease in his chest deepened. "What do you mean? I just walked in. I don't even know her." The priest stepped forward, his voice steady. "And yet, maybe she is exactly the reason you were meant to come here." Ryan hesitated, Something in the way the priest spoke, so certain yet without pressure, sent a strange chill through him. Against every instinct, he found himself walking toward the woman. She was young, mid-30s perhaps, her clothes neat but worn. Her fingers clutched an old leather purse, knuckles white from pressure. When she finally lifted her tear-streaked face, Ryan felt something inside him twist. He knew those eyes. Emily? His voice was barely a whisper. Her breath hitched as recognition dawned. Ryan! For a moment, time seemed to stop. Emily Turner, his childhood friend. The girl who used to dream big with him under the rusting fire escapes of their old Brooklyn neighborhood. The girl who once swore she'd become a lawyer and change the world. The girl who disappeared from his life the moment he left for Wall Street, chasing his empire. He had barely thought about her in years. Ryan forced a smirk, trying to shake off the sudden flood of memories. Well, long time no see. But Emily didn't smile. Instead, fresh tears welled in her eyes as she gripped her purse tighter. Ryan, I didn't know who else to turn to. Her voice was thick with desperation. Something about the way she said his name, the way it trembled on her lips, made his carefully constructed walls crack. Father Michael watched quietly, as if he already knew this moment had been set in motion long before either of them stepped through those cathedral doors. Ryan swallowed hard, his heart pounding. He had spent his whole life believing power and wealth made him untouchable. But standing here, in front of Emily, someone who knew him before he became Ryan Lancaster, billionaire, he felt something terrifying. He felt small. And for the first time in years, he wasn't sure if money could fix what was coming next. Ryan's throat went dry. He hadn't seen Emily in over a decade, yet here she was, standing in a dimly lit cathedral, looking at him with a mixture of desperation and something else, something that made his chest tighten. "What do you mean you had no one else to turn to?" he asked, his voice softer than he intended. Emily let out a shaky breath, glancing down at her purse as if searching for strength. "It's my son, Ryan," she whispered. "He's sick. The medical bills are piling up, and Her voice broke, and she quickly wiped her tears. "I've tried everything. I went to every bank, every organization. No one will help me." Ryan felt an unexpected pang in his chest. Emily Turner, fierce, determined Emily, was now standing in front of him, utterly broken. He could still remember the girl who used to lecture him about integrity, who refused to take shortcuts, who once told him that no amount of money was worth losing oneself. And now she was here, asking for help. His instincts kicked in. "How much do you need?" The words left his lips before he could stop them. Emily flinched slightly, her fingers tightening around her purse. "I'm not asking for a handout, Ryan." "Then what do you want?" She met his gaze, and for the first time, he saw something in her eyes that unsettled him. "I want to know if the person I used to believe in still exists." Ryan inhaled sharply, caught off guard. "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" Emily hesitated, then shook her head. "You wouldn't understand." Anger flared in his chest. "Try me." She exhaled, looking away for a moment before whispering, "I didn't come here just for the money, Ryan. I came here because I needed to believe that success didn't erase the man you used to be." Ryan felt like he had been punched in the gut. Success didn't erase him. It defined him, didn't it? The silence stretched between them, thick with memories and unspoken words. The soft glow of candlelight flickered around them, casting shadows on the cathedral walls. Father Michael, who had remained quiet, finally spoke. Perhaps, Ryan, this is not just about what you can give. Perhaps it is also about what you have lost. Ryan turned toward the priest, irritation flickering in his eyes. And what exactly do you think I've lost? The priest smiled gently. That is a question only you can answer. Ryan clenched his jaw, his mind racing. For years, he had built walls around himself, convinced that wealth and power were all he needed. But now, standing in this cathedral, faced with the past he had abandoned, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Doubt. Emily took a small step forward. Ryan, if you truly believe money is the answer to everything, then write the check, and I'll leave. But if there's even a part of you that wonders if there's more to life than this, then meet me tomorrow. Just for one day. No business calls, no meetings. Just you and me. Let me show you what you've forgotten. Ryan stared at her, every instinct screaming at him to say no, to walk away, to pretend this conversation never happened. But for some reason, he couldn't. His pulse pounded as he met her gaze, and against all logic, against everything he thought he knew, he heard himself say, "Where and when?" Emily's lips parted slightly in surprise, but she quickly masked it with a small, knowing smile. 9 a.m., Brooklyn Bridge. And with that, she turned and walked out of the cathedral, leaving Ryan standing in the flickering candlelight, his carefully constructed world beginning to crack. Ryan barely slept that night. He lay in his penthouse, staring at the ceiling, the city lights casting long shadows across the room. The words of both Emily and Father Michael echoed in his mind, refusing to fade. I want to know if the person I used to believe in still exists. Perhaps, Ryan, this is not just about what you can give. Perhaps it is also about what you have lost. Lost? What could he possibly have lost? He was one of the youngest billionaires in New York. He had power, respect, influence. If anything, he had won. Hadn't he? And yet, as he lay awake in his 1,000 thread-count sheets, he felt something gnawing at him, something he couldn't name. By the time the sun began to rise, he had made his decision. The next morning, Ryan stood at the entrance of the Brooklyn Bridge, his hands stuffed into the pockets of his tailored coat. He hadn't been back here in years. The last time he stood on this bridge, he was 17, dreaming of a future so big it felt impossible. Emily had been beside him that day, sketching her plans for the future in a battered notebook, telling him that no matter where life took them, they couldn't forget where they came from. He had broken that promise. A gust of wind blew through the air, and then he saw her. Emily stood a few feet away, her coat wrapped tightly around her. She looked the same, yet different. Older, yes, but not just in years. There was a quiet strength in her now, something life had carved into her. "You came," she said, surprise flickering in her eyes. Ryan smirked, though it didn't feel as sharp as usual. "What can I say? I was curious." Emily studied him for a moment before nodding. "Come on, then. Let's take a walk." They walked in silence at first, the steady rhythm of their footsteps matching the heartbeat of the city. The morning sun bathed the skyline in gold, and for a brief moment, Ryan felt normal. "You never asked about him," Emily said suddenly. Ryan frowned. "Who?" "My son." A strange guilt crept into his chest. He had offered money, yet he hadn't even asked the boy's name. "Tell me about him," he said, quieter this time. Emily glanced at him before looking out over the water. "His name is Oliver. He's 8, smart, loves space. He wants to be an astronaut someday." She let out a soft laugh. "He thinks if he builds a rocket, he can fly away to a place where people don't get sick." Ryan swallowed. "And his father?" "Gone before Oliver was born." Ryan nodded, unsure what to say. For years, he had believed that everyone was responsible for their own fate, that weakness was a choice, that failure only happened to those who didn't try hard enough. But Emily had tried. He could hear it in her voice, see it in the lines of her face. Life hadn't beaten her because she was weak. It had beaten her because sometimes no amount of effort could change fate. "How bad is it?" he asked. Emily inhaled sharply. "The doctors say he needs surgery soon. If we wait too long." Her voice trailed off. "I don't have the kind of money they're asking for, Ryan. And I hate that I'm standing here, asking you of all people." Ryan stared at her. For the first time in a long time, he didn't know what to do. Giving her the money was easy. A single call and Oliver's medical bills would be covered. But somehow that didn't feel like enough. Because the truth was, Emily didn't just need his money. She needed to know if the boy she once believed in still existed. And Ryan wasn't sure of the answer. The city stretched before them, alive and humming, unaware of the silent war waging in Ryan's heart. Would he simply write a check and walk away? Or would he finally face the truth about himself, the truth he had been running from for years? And if he did, what would he find? Ryan stood on the Brooklyn Bridge, staring at Emily. The cold morning air bit at his skin, but he barely noticed. For the first time in years, he was faced with a decision that money alone couldn't solve. Emily had asked for his help, but beneath her words, he knew she was asking for something more. She wanted to know if the boy she once believed in still existed, the one who dreamed of more than just wealth and power. The problem was, Ryan wasn't sure if that boy was still alive. He exhaled slowly. "How much is the surgery?" Emily hesitated before whispering, $200,000. Pocket change. An amount so insignificant to him that he could spend it on a single night out. And yet, the weight of this decision felt heavier than any deal he had ever made. He could just write the check and walk away. That was the easy way, the Ryan Lancaster way. But for some reason, it didn't feel right. For once, he didn't want to just throw money at a problem. He wanted to do something, to be something more than just a walking bank account. A sudden memory hit him. Standing on this very bridge at 17, telling Emily that one day they would change the world, that one day they would matter. Had he mattered? Had he really changed anything other than the number in his bank account? Ryan sighed, then pulled out his phone. He dialed a number, and within seconds, a voice answered. "Mr. Lancaster? I need you to transfer $200,000 to an account," Ryan said, his voice steady. "I'll send you the details in a minute." Emily's lips parted in shock. "Ryan, But he wasn't done. And another thing, he said into the phone, I want a full scholarship fund set up in Oliver's name. Any kid who grows up like we did, struggling with no way out, I want them to have one. No exceptions. Call it the Oliver Turner Foundation. Emily gasped. Ryan, you don't have to. I know, he interrupted, locking eyes with her. But I want to. For the first time in years, Ryan felt something shift inside him. A wall he hadn't even realized he built was crumbling. This wasn't just about Emily or Oliver anymore. This was about him. About proving to himself that the boy on this bridge all those years ago hadn't disappeared completely. Father Michael's words echoed in his mind. Perhaps, Ryan, this is not just about what you can give. Perhaps it is also about what you have lost. And in that moment, Ryan realized what he had lost. Not money, not power, but purpose. Emily's eyes filled with tears, but this time, they weren't just from sadness. They were from something else, something Ryan hadn't seen in a long time. Hope. She stepped closer, squeezing his hand. Thank you, Ryan. For once, he didn't deflect, didn't joke. He simply nodded. It's about time I did something that actually matters. And as the sun rose over New York, painting the city in gold, Ryan Lancaster, the billionaire who once mocked a priest in a cathedral, finally understood what true wealth really meant. It wasn't the money. It was the lives he could change.